I'm Pressman from Exprima Talks for Publishing Perspectives. I'm here with Ed Nawotka from Publishing Perspectives, and also with James Appell from Bookmate.
Yeah,
thank you.
You read that correctly.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Upside down, no less. And we're at Digital Book World 14, and we're going to ask him a few questions about Bookmate. But before we even get to that, I have two questions I want to ask. One of them is to you, what is a digital book?
What is a digital book?
What is a digital book?
I mean, as someone whose entire business is based around providing end users with digital books to read, I guess we look at it as we're pretty traditional in our view of what a book is. We know that our users want to read classic literature, modern literature, the kind of thing that up until 10 or 15 years ago was packaged up between two leather-bound covers. So we do look at it as very much the old school 250, 300 pages long of great writing, fiction and non-fiction. And we're not trying to be too aggressive about reinterpreting what the book is.
So it's a portage of the print book into a digital context.
I remember the Facebook guys when they came.
When you're there, you've got a digital book.
I mean, that's what we're finding, that the readers who use Bookmate, my company's app and platform, that's what they're reading. They're not asking us for comic books, flash animation, bells and whistles.
No one's asking for flash.
Not literally software flash and not literally flash bang and wallop.
Right, I see. Okay, so what service do you provide your readers?
Well, we've got an app that works across the three main platforms, Windows Phone, iOS and Android, and we have a web platform as well. It's accessible all around the world, and for a $5 a month fee we provide to the subscribers a library of 250,000 books. The vast majority of those are in Russian, because we have signed with about 375 Russian publishers, and as a result, every time a reader reads a book that's copyrighted in Russia, there's a revenue royalty paid to those Russian publishers. And we're looking at expanding as well. We're looking to talk to English language publishers and actually, to be honest, publishers who are just providing great books in any language, because quite frankly the world is becoming smaller and readers are travelling national boundaries. English, for example, we know 5% of our readers, and if you take Russia's population of about 140 million, 5% of those people, we would guesstimate, are eligible and interested to read original English language books. So we're looking to try and bring in as many books as possible, great quality, whatever readers want to read, and so we're trying to partner with as many publishers as we can.
That's great. So you're now looking to make publisher relationships?
I've been doing that now for 6 months since I moved over to Moscow. Going out, meeting publishers, trying to explain to them, look, you've got other subscription businesses approaching you. You've got plenty of people out there like Oyster and Script and many others who are all trying to say to you, look, we're marketing this model and this is what people want. We're trying to look at it something slightly different. We're a solution for an emerging market. We want to say to publishers, don't treat us as every other subscription business that knocks on your door. Treat us as a revenue generation solution in places maybe marginal markets, difficult markets to break into for distribution reasons, markets dominated by piracy. We're attempting to find that halfway house. Makes sense for readers, makes sense economically for them, they can pay a little and get a lot, and it makes sense for publishers because we take all of that headache and stress about distribution and say, we'll take the files and we'll pay you the revenue when it comes in. And that's the message that we're sending out, and that's how I, broadly speaking, try and convince publishers we're worth partnering with.
That's great. So they can reclaim this sort of market black hole.
Yeah.
Show up in a legitimate way and make some money.
Look, many people talk about publishing and the industry as a zero-sum game, and maybe that's true in the US and UK where these publishers are based and where their core markets are. Maybe it is that there's a set amount of money that's sloshing about and that everyone's trying to get a piece of that pie. In piracy-dominated markets, and I look at Russia, but I'm also talking about Ukraine, where we have about 100,000 monthly users. I'm looking at Kazakhstan and Belarus, also talking about Southeast Asia, I'm talking about Turkey, where we're looking to operate in 2014 as well. It's not a zero-sum game. You start claiming back there's sometimes 80-85% of readers who are only accessing illegal copyrighted work. and not paying a penny for it, you start eating into that and start bringing them back into the fold. They have become really an active constituency of people who are going to be spending money, and publishers are going to be earning from them. We're just a tool that is trying to essentially win back those people.
Right, it's real market share.
We think so.
Well, speaking of eating, where do you eat in Moscow? Now that you've moved there, what's the food like?
Oh, they've just opened a Chili's and a Wendy's.
No!
I'm from the UK.
Right.
No, I'm from the UK, so it's.
Do you have a favorite restaurant there, or do you cook?
You know,
yourself?
in Moscow, is this wonderful place. It's Russia's interpretation of an American diner. It's called Starlight Diner.
No kidding.
They serve triple, quadruple decker burgers with cheese and
love it.
mayonnaise and
Do they do it well?
crinkle cut fries and milkshakes. The milkshakes are great. In fact, one thing that they do, and sorry for the children and under 18s who are maybe watching this, but is vodka-laced milkshakes.
Oh,
delicious.
Of course.
It's
we should open one here.
It's a Russian take on an American classic.
I love that. We could open one of those here. We could forget this whole publishing thing. Boozy milkshakes.
Yeah.
.com. All right, Ed, do you have any questions?
I think you covered almost everything.
Great.
That people are curious about. I'm curious because I think that what is your sort of general perception of Bookmates and coming from a Russian organization? Because what you've just described is an organization that's hell-bent on bringing back those readers who've been lost or have been maybe acclimated to the whole process of only reading pirated books. And I think that there is a sort of reticence in the global book community to work with a company based in a country that has such a difficult reputation. And clearly that's something you all are working to combat and to fix. But what's your sort of general perception of how you're received and what you tell them about it? And what is it that you do differently that really is going to entice those readers who are accustomed to getting everything?
Well, I mean, as I've said, and I'll restate more explicitly, our raison d'etre is to essentially beat pirates.
Got it.
And therefore we set ourselves up as a company specifically with a mind to convincing publishers that we're serious about their business and we're serious about combating piracy. So as far as the security measures that we have on the servers, as far as the design of the app and the design of our web platform to ensure that there's no content that could possibly be migrated over and then stolen or copied or brought onto piracy sites. That's our priority number one. So when we go in and speak to publishers, we have to be absolutely clear. Look, we're not helping pirates. We're the ones battling on your behalf and alongside you. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is as far as how we, as a Russian company, knocking on the door of let's say Faber and Faber, esteemed old school, really a great big name in the industry with a very long and venerable history. And we go in there and say, hey, we're from Russia. Yes, occasionally.
Well, in the UK, though, these days, that's not such a strange thing, certainly, because Waterstones is owned by a Russian oligarch.
Absolutely true. But what's funny is, I mean, I as an Englishman, people, the first thing they say to me before we even get down to business is, what are you doing in Russia? Like, seriously, how did that happen? And
boozy
Moscow,
milkshakes.
yeah, exactly. Moscow, I don't think it's
true, it isn't. But what it is for me personally, as somebody who's very sort of external facing and has to talk to people and tell a story, actually it really makes a big difference to our business that we have this unique story. It's something to tell about where we come from and why we're doing what we're doing and how the business is. It's important that the business is based in Russia because we understand the market conditions that lead to piracy. It actually makes a big difference to us, and I think that it has a positive impact on the negotiations we have with publishers as well.
And you alluded to 100,000 users in the Ukraine. What's your user base now currently in Russia?
So we have about 500,000 users in Russia, and it's growing all the time. And just a bit more detail on how it is growing. We have obviously capability for organic growth. You can go to the App Store and you can go to iTunes and Google Play and find the app, but also we have a distribution model that's based on bundling with mobile telephone services. So we bring on board a mobile telephone operator and we say to them, hey, why don't you offer your $10 a month prepaid and postpaid contracts for an extra $5 access to this unlimited library? And that way we could bring on 1, 2, 3, 4 million people all at once those deals are concluded. So we're estimating that at least in the next 6 months or so, we conclude deals like that, not just in Russia, but in other places. We'd like to be talking about users in the millions rather than in the hundreds of thousands we're talking about at the moment.
Now, there was a claim made just this past month where a study came out, some of it backed by LitRes, that claimed that Russia was now within the top 5. The claim was actually made to be in the top number 3 in the world in global ebook sales. And there was a lot of speculation in monetary terms. And I'm just curious, as someone who sells directly or works directly with Russian consumers, and the feeling was that there was potential for it to actually become number 2. What is your exact feeling about that? I mean, do you think that hyperbole? Because looking at that from North America, it sure sounds like hyperbole. A bit like, the $50 billion spent to build the Winter Olympic Stadium, a sort of gesture of grandiosity. And I'm curious what your perception of that statement was, if you think that's realistic, or is that mere puffery?
Well, as you and I both know, Ed, whenever people talk about sizing the market for the publishing industry in whatever country, there's a hell of a lot of, back of the postcard calculations that are done, and that would be my first caveat. My second caveat is take Russia as purely in terms of the numbers of people who live there and the fact that there's a huge reading habit. 150 million people living in Russia, and it's a country that it belongs to the BRICS, so economically it's at least developed enough that there is a kind of basis financially for people to be buying books. And the education system, unlike some of the other BRIC countries, is it's 100 years in the making. It's we're talking about a country of Dostoevsky and Pushkin and so on and so forth.
There's a cultural tradition.
There's a huge cultural tradition of books, and understand that Russia actually is a huge economy. But the flip side of that is when you're trying to put a number on what it's worth and what it might be worth in future, you have to take into account piracy. And this again brings me back to the Bookmate's entire basis for operation.
Right.
Is beat the pirates, and suddenly the Russian market of, as I say, 140 million very active readers suddenly becomes a very, very juicy, very, very lucrative market for book publishers. And so, like I say, that's what we're aiming for, and we're pretty confident. If not at the moment, being able to say Russia is the second or third largest publishing, territory in the world. It certainly has the potential to be so, even now. But let's just win the war on piracy first.
You win the battle, and then you can have the
Correct.
It's kind of shades of what happened in music too.
Yeah, and I would like to say it's not part of my remit at Bookmate, but one of our partner companies, we're actually an umbrella of several startups all operating under the same roof. We have a company called Ebook, which is a kind of Spotify style music streaming service, and we work so closely with them to try and understand how they actually used their service, their marketing, their partnership deals to beat the piracy issue in Russia through the music side of things. It's interesting that we can share that expertise under one roof.
It's a lot to be learned.
It informs us a lot.
Yeah. All right, thank you.